While Gaijin almost never tells us their plans ahead of time, they did give us some information on when they will be adding more active radar homing missiles to the game. Back in December on the Air Superiority Update dev stream, we were told by BVVD, who's the lead developer for War Thunder, that these new missiles would be added in one of the first two updates of 2024. Since the updates are about the same time every year, we know that it will be either in March or in June, though from what I've been able to gather, it does sound like they intended on adding them in December with the last update. I do think that this means that if they are ready to be added by the March update, then they will be. Getting a bit more into the specifics, they said the plan was to add these ARH missiles to most nations possible. As it currently stands, every nation but Germany has a Fox 3 capable aircraft, though it does get a little more complicated than that. As for Germany, they can receive the F4F ICE as the first Fox 3 platform, though it isn't as simple as giving everyone just any missile they could carry. I'll be attempting to give a bit of an analysis on which missiles and the variants that will be coming. Of course, a fair bit of this is just guessing, but I will be using information told to us from Gaijin to base it on. Also, real quick, if you guys could hit those like and subscribe buttons, it would be really appreciated. My goal is to hit 500 by the end of February, so thank you to anyone who does subscribe. The first missile I'll talk about is the Chinese PL-12. The reason I chose this one first is because Gaijin told us that it will be among the first to be added. Back when the J8F was being added last year, they mentioned the PL-12 in the dev blog. As you can see here, they specifically said it would be added along with the other beyond visual range air-to-air missiles, so we at the very least know this one is coming. There are two aircraft in game that can carry it, both of which are in the Chinese tree. The first, of course, is the JAF, and the second is the JH-7A. The max range of the PL-12 is around 100 kilometers, which is about on par with the AIM-120C AMRAAM. This is an important part, which we'll get to in just a bit. Being quite a long range, this will likely be one of the better Fox 3 missiles being added, at least in my opinion. Overall, China will be getting some good weapons, not counting the next missile I'll be talking about. This next missile is, of course, the AIM-120 AMRAAM. I'll be covering all of its major variants, and which I think will be coming. The first two, the A and the B, will be virtually the same in terms of the game, with the B being slightly better. The main difference is which planes use which. The A variant was used by the US F-16A ADF, the F-15A, the Tornado F-3, the Tornado ADV, the AV-8B+, and the F-15A BAS. The B was used by the US F-16A ADF, the F-15A, the JAS-39C Gripen, the Italian F-16 ADF, the AV-8B+, and the F-15A BAS. The AIM-120A and the B have a max range of about 70 kilometers, which is similar to the AIM-7M. Next, we have the AIM-120C, which is also where we start to get into the issue of different blocks. The C variant had quite a few different upgrades, many of which were just software differences, however they made it much better, especially in terms of range. The vehicles in-game that can carry the 120C are the F-16C, the JAS-39C Gripen, the F-15J, the F-16A MLU, the AV-8B+, and the F-16D. This missile has a max range of about 100 kilometers like the PL-12 I mentioned earlier. Now, these are the max ranges, and their effective ranges will be much lower. However, the effective range of the PL-12 will be much more than the AMRAAM A and B. Because of this, I think there's a decent possibility that the AIM-120A through the C will all be added at the same time. This, of course, won't necessarily happen, but it is possible. The last AMRAAM variant I will mention is the D. This can be carried by the F-16C and the F-16D. This missile will not be coming until quite a bit later, as it has a max range of about 160 kilometers. It is much more deadly than even the AIM-120C, and it has been upgraded in many different ways. In my opinion, the soonest this variant will come would be sometime next year, with a very small chance being the end of this year, but there would need to be a ton of gameplay changes before that. The next missile is Russia's R-77. There are two variants I'll be covering, the base R-77 and the upgraded R-77-1. The R-77 can be carried on both the MiG-29 SMT and the Yak-141. This has a range of about 50 kilometers, which you may notice is quite a bit less than the others I've mentioned so far, being 20 whole kilometers short of even the worst variant of the AMRAAM. This is a factor in why I think there's a decent possibility we see the R-77-1, which has a much more respectable max range of about 100 kilometers. There's only one plane in the game that would get the upgraded R-77-1, and that being the MiG-29 SMT. If Russia were to only get the R-77, it would be massively lacking compared to what the others will get. The next missile is the AAM-4, which, again, is only used by one vehicle currently in-game, the F-15J. The base variant of the AAM-4 starts off with a max range of about 100 kilometers. You may be able to see a pattern here of many of these missiles having somewhere around 100 kilometer range, whether the base or an upgraded variant. I doubt this will come initially, as there isn't much reason to add it, as the F-15J would likely just receive up to the AIM-120C currently. There's also an upgraded variant of the AAM-4, the AAM-4B, which has an increased range of 120 kilometers and a much better ASA seeker. We're probably pretty far from that, as it would be fairly hard to avoid this missile outside of defeating it kinematically. Next, we have the Mica RF. This is in a bit of a different spot, as well it has a max range of about 80 kilometers, it is highly maneuverable, and at shorter ranges there's essentially no escaping it. It was designed to be able to perform well at both short and long ranges, so while it doesn't have quite the max range of the other missiles I've mentioned, it is much more deadly than the other missiles within its effective ranges. There's only one plane in the game with the capability to carry it, which is the Mirage 2005F. I do think that because of how good this missile should be, there's a chance it won't be added yet. However, they could add it and artificially nerf it, which I don't agree with, and I'd rather they just wait to add something instead of making it inaccurate. The last missile I'll be covering is the Meteor missile. I'll start by saying that this will not be coming anytime soon. It is an extremely powerful missile, and it will likely come with other missiles such as the AIM-120D. The max range of the Meteor is 200 kilometers, which is double the range of the longest range missiles that will come at first. It also has a no escape range of 60 kilometers, which just means that within 60 kilometers, you cannot defeat a Meteor kinematically. You'd have to defeat it by notching and using chaff, although it does have a very good seeker, so that isn't as easy as it seems. As of now, there's only one plane that could carry this, and that's the JAS-39C Gripen. Sweden will be getting this variant of the Gripen next update, as Gaijin told us, but like the AIM-120D, I would expect it to come no earlier than next year. We will need a lot of work to be able to make these missiles work without destroying the game. In the state the game currently is, I think it'll be absolutely cancerous when more active missiles are added. I remember when the F-14 was added, and everyone was just lobbing off Phoenixes and immediately turning around. With Phoenixes, it wasn't too bad, as you could easily dodge them. However, with the missiles that are coming soon, it'll be much harder to do so, if not impossible. Knowing Gaijin's reactionary nature, they probably won't do anything to counteract this issue until a bit after the update. With 16 players on a team, and the planes in-game having a max of 8 active missiles, you could see up to 128 of these missiles coming at you, not to mention all the other missiles that someone may have on top of that. Even on top of that, on many maps, you'll be able to launch your shiny new missiles at the enemy very quickly after takeoff. Small maps such as City will allow you to get your weapons off within 30 seconds of takeoff, which is absolutely ridiculous. With less players, this will not be quite as bad, as you'll have less to deal with, so even on smaller maps, it will be less of an issue. I also think that the meta will change a bit, in that people will start to climb more as F-14s do so when using Phoenixes. The range on your missiles will greatly increase at higher altitudes, and the ability to turn away and let your missiles do the work will probably convince many people to stray away from sticking to the deck. I think a skilled player, or just one with more than one brain cell like most players, will be able to do quite well. You want to use these missiles to joust and go back and forth. The majority of players will likely just climb and fire all their missiles and immediately go back to land, just like F-14 pilots used to do. To be fair to the Tomcat users, firing off all of your Phoenixes at the beginning is really the only way to use them with the way Aerobee is currently set up, and they need to gain speed to be most effective. Personally, I would welcome the addition of newer missiles to the game, and I'm very excited. However, I think that they won't come without major drawbacks. These of course don't need to be an issue and can be fixed, but it is just a matter of how long Gaijin will let it go before doing something. If you guys did enjoy this video, please make sure to like the video and subscribe if you haven't already. Anything is super helpful.